The estimates in between 250 to 300, and the number's always going up too. And now with the war in Syria and ISIS, like the numbers are, I don't know exactly. It's hard to estimate because there's a lot of children too that aren't registered. Like the people who come up with those numbers are just doing their best guess.
But at the same time, you got territories where it's inaccessible, right? Like say like Syria and certain rebel groups in Africa, you can't go behind their lines, so you can actually know. It's different. You get commanders who doesn't have any morals, and then but most commanders need girls, right? So most of the times the girls are used as sex slaves, and then there are some girls out there that you can't touch them, you can't make them do what like the commanders can get them to be sex slave. They're fighters. They like fight on the front line. They make decisions like the guys, but most of the times, yeah, girls are used as sex slaves. But sometimes it's because of a deal, like oh, I want few boxes of ammunition, or oh, I want this favor, and be like, yeah, but we don't have enough women, and you'd be like, yeah, we have enough. Sometimes it happens
Yeah.
like that too.
And that's like human trafficking, right? And it also depends on the group. Like some groups you might see no girls, and some groups you might see a lot of girls. So that number is like an average, I would say.
Government do recruit, but it's not as common as militias and rebel groups, because most government have some kind of UN surveillance on them. They usually take kids that are mostly willingly volunteered. The first group that captured me in Sierra Leone, I'm from Sierra Leone. The war was started by a guy called Fode Sanko. He was the rebel leader. He started the war, and he promised to bring education, freedom, and share the resources in the country equally among the people. But when he started the war, people realized he was killing more people than the government. So he stopped having people who were willingly volunteer for him. So he would go from town to town and attack the town, capture people and a bunch of kids, and go train them and use them to capture the next town and capture more people. I was kidnapped by his men. I was living in a town called Tongafield in Sierra Leone.
That number of estimated child soldiers, they include all children who are kidnapped or forcibly used by groups. So cooks and servants in the camps that can't leave, that are like they're captured by the group, sex slaves, spies, messengers, and also then the children that are in the group with guns. So it's the number encompasses all of them, but the kids are involved in the conflict in different ways, but they still see war or see violence or are part of the atrocities that happen.
It depends to how they need them, because war is constantly changing, right? The most horrible way kids can be used is when they use as human shields, right? Um, for example, if the militia has a bunch of child soldiers and they're fighting the government at a checkpoint, right? They'll place the kids at strategic positions, right? If they want to retreat because they're realizing they're losing men, they can't fight, keep on fighting. So they'll place these kids in strategic places, like in a house, on a tree, right? And then they'll tell them they're gonna come back for them. They're just gonna go for reinforcement. But mostly what they're doing is they're trying to escape, right? So these kids can keep shooting while they have the chance to escape, so they can be used as human shield. And sometimes it depends. Some commandants are like different. They put the kids, they try to keep them safe and keep them away from as much action as they can.
Yeah. Sometimes when kids are first captured, they have to go through the indoctrination process or like a little bit of brainwashing in order to then get them to the point where they're fighting. So at the beginning, they might be used to carry supplies and goods. And then as they slowly get into the group and they feel like they're, like they're not as freaked out from when they were first captured, then they start the training, or then they might just like, some groups might just have like it happen right away. Like when a kid is captured, they force the kid to kill their parents, and that's their indoctrination, because then they don't have anywhere to go back to and they have to stay with the group. It's like fighting happens and then there's some quiet for a while. and then fighting happens and there's quiet. So if they're in the camps, then maybe they will do the work around the camp. And then if they go to fight, then they might use the kids for that too.
Right. They'll be like the reason why the government keep doing this because your parents didn't stand up and fight and try to stop it. They just let it happen, so they're guilty somehow. So they will tell that to a kid who they killed their parent and make them realize, feel like, oh my dad could have saved my country, right? And they will be like, it's their duty as citizens of the country to fight and take over a corrupt government like that and bring change, make people get food, all share everything equally. And when you're young, you can't tell if that guy is saying that because he wants to win the war and become the next government and do the same thing. You can't tell the difference because you know the reality is people are hungry, people are starving, and the country is so rich in natural resources, so it makes you believe it. And the first time I was 7, 8, it's on and off. A little bit when I was 10 and I was out, and 13, it was just on and off. It's like she was saying in civil wars, most of the time the whole country is not erupting, right? So there's like a thing called front lines, right? So it's like this is the enemy territory on the right, the government territory on the right. So anything that's not in those front line, most of the time is safe. I mean, yeah, it's more peaceful in here, but in the front line, that's where it's intense, right? So the front lines keep changing, it grows, and then it moves back this way. So most of the times I'll try to run from it, the war, and like stop fighting. So I'll fight for 3 months and be like, nah, I need to get out of here and go look for a family or someone to take me in and put me back to school because other parts of the country is peaceful, right? So I'll go there and then be there and go to school and be in peace for a year or so, and then the front lines change, and now that place is in war again. And then I find myself in a situation where I have to choose a side, and then I just choose a side until I get out. So for me, it's the first time I was 7, but I know friends that were there their whole time, right, their whole childhood, and I'm fortunate that didn't happen to me, thank God. But yeah, and but it's mostly common 13 years old most of the time, like the majority of kids fighting is 13, 12, 14. The governments that were running the country were like mismanaging the resources. People were poor. And the thing is, when people are poor, they're not able to send their kids to school, right? And if you're not living in a poor country, you don't understand. Like when you hear hunger, you think about, oh, I was hungry and then I went home and eat. That's not it, right? In like countries like that, it's like you wake up, you not only don't have food, but you don't know if you're gonna have food, right? And then you watch your sisters or your brothers go through that every day. There's something about it. It's just hopeless. Like, but it's, like in Sierra Leone mostly we still play and stuff, but it's weighing on you, right? So it's easy because it's really hard to live with hunger too, right? To have a government or a militia provide you food, take away that hunger pain just like that. My mom was poor, but my uncle was well-to-do, right? So I was living in a rich house when they came and kidnapped me for the very first time. It's only when I came back the second time because my uncle's business been destroyed and he wasn't around that I become extremely poor again because I didn't have anyone to take care of me. So sometimes even rich kids, if they took over the town, it doesn't matter anymore,
Yeah.
right? But most of the time, people who can afford it can always travel to the other parts of the country
Or
because
fly out.
or fly out and get away from it, right?
A lot of rich
sometimes,
people in Sierra
yeah,
Leone during the Sierra Leone War flew
left,
to America,
yeah,
Europe.
and
other
other
parts of the world.
places. And y- before the attack come, it's not like most of the time it just doesn't happen overnight, right? You hear rumors, oh, they're coming, oh, the front line is getting closer, or they hit that town, and then they hit another town that's closer, and you like, right? So you have, if you can afford it, you have enough time to get out,
But
right? Most of
sometimes,
the times, but if they take over the town, it doesn't matter who's rich or who's poor, they just take everyone. But in most cases, most of the kids that get taken in war, they're poor. So, like the statement is right, like in most cases. For some, sometimes, because income and security, mostly food and a place to sleep. It's not like it's planning on getting rich. I just wanted food, man, and somewhere to. And But yeah, mostly it's because of income insecurities, and sometimes it's personal issues too. Like there was one or two moments where I joined because I lost friends, right? Like me and some friends decided not to fight anymore, and we don't want to be part of it. We know it's all a lie, and I lose someone like that, and I like get angry again. I'm like, he didn't do anything. He doesn't want to be part of it, and I take it personal, and I go volunteer. But so when they see those kids in vehicles and stuff, they feel like it's cool, so they want to be part of it. Sometimes they try and choose. There like occasionally people like that who just abandon their families. Like, oh, this is so cool. I want to be in a jeep and have a gun, escape, and then I later joined the army. But the reason why I escaped, because when I escaped from them and came back, my uncle wasn't where we were anymore. I didn't have anywhere to go, and some of my childhood friends have joined the army, and they were having their daily bread and food and stuff. So I volunteered and joined the army. Sometimes UN capture these kids and take them, and then they don't continue to provide for them, so these kids end up going back to the militia because they don't know where their family is at, and they want to survive and familiarity, so they just go back to the militia that kidnapped them in the first place.
when you need like food, shelter, clothing, and protection in a war, you can join a group. And in like Israel and Palestine right now, where the Palestinian people are constantly being oppressed, like people get to a point where they're like, I have nothing left to live for, so why not fight? Right? Because all these things have been happening to my family. My lands get taken away. Like I have no way to support my family. I have no job. I have no skills. Like
That's
nothing.
easy.
It's easy to get the people to rise up. But when people are educated and they realize we're not all that different, like everyone's the same, then it can stop the wars from
Pretty
happening.
quick,
Because
yeah.
it's just about people who aren't educated can believe anything that they're told, right? So sometimes if you haven't gone to school, if you don't know how to read or write, someone can say this is what this says, no matter, like they can be lying to you, right? And you don't know because you can't read or write yourself. You just believe what they tell you.
Sierra Leone war wasn't that sophisticated. Like I use mostly AK-47. It's like it's the only weapon mostly you can find, and you always have people in the crew who uses like RPG rocket launchers, and LMGs and other high sophisticated weapons, but we really didn't have like crazy technological like weapons because it's a poor country, right?
An AK-47 is a very easy weapon for a kid to use because it's pretty light and it just shoots, and
It's easy
to learn how to load
and it
it.
lasts long, and
Durable.
it can fire in the rain or like in situations. So other guns they malfunction pretty quick, but it was pretty strong. Yeah. They show you how to cock it, like the safety pin, like how to put it on single and rapid fire, and how to take the gun apart, how to clean it, and how to put it back together, and how to load your magazine because you need that, right? And yeah, the kind of bullet you need to load your magazine. That's about it. Like I'm still the same person I was before the kid, like before the war, but things change. Like Because in war, if you're in war, it makes you grow faster. Because by the time you're 13, you like every situation you walk in, you're thinking about how do I get out, how do I survive, from which angle someone is gonna attack me. So your brain is always working, and you're seeing things, some realities of a life, like oh, people die for real, and when they die, you see what happened to the corpses and stuff like that, right? So those are things that stays with you forever and it impacts you for the rest of your life. And like for me, I never really talked about my situations and stuff for the longest time until I went to Vancouver Film School. When that's where I met Ava. We went to Vancouver Film School together. Um, like when they started poking me in the acting classes, like for example, make you sit and imagine someone sitting on the other side opposite from you and talk to them and tell them what you wanted to say to them. So it's like moments like that, like I would talk to myself when I was a kid, like write something to myself and started understanding it. So it's like graduating from film school. I realized how it affected me because sometimes I'll just be in these moods, but I don't know why it's happening and how to stop it. So either drink or do something crazy like that. But after film school, like if my tummy start feeling all crunchy and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. I'm starting to feel it. Maybe I just need to release that energy, go to the gym or play guitar or write something. Until when we founded our foundation, we started talking, going out to schools and other places and talking to people, and it gets easier. I remember the first time when we started talking about it, it was pretty hard. We would take it on, like after the presentation, we would bring it home, just
It affects you
there,
emotionally.
right? Destroy. But I at the same time, I think it made me understand the world better because it makes me curious, like what kind of world is this? Like, what makes people fight, right? Because you see people you know who, before they fought, before they joined the army, they're normal people. They're happy. They help people, and then you see that person transform in front of your eyes. You see that transformation happen. You know something happened in between that time, right? So it made me, at the same time, made me be more forgiving. Like if people do stuff to me instead of holding it, most of the time, like I never know. Maybe I have nothing to do with it, right? It makes me more, at the same time, makes me more forgiving and understanding of other people. Um, so there's like a yin and a yang. It's like bad side, then there's that good side, and yeah.
And would you say like doing the presentations that helped you kind of?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it
And
was
now building
hard,
your
but
project.
yeah, it helped me a lot.
And so now, like for our first project, we're going to do it in Sierra Leone, and it's like giving back to that country and helping people there to progress and come to terms with the trauma that they've gone through. Child soldiers helping them come to terms with their trauma and providing education and skills training and art and sport therapy programs and a water well and a medical clinic. And just that's as our first project is for Sierra Leone because it's where Fascinate is from, and we know that country the most, and then as that would be our founding base, and from there we can spread around to other African countries and get centers open where children who've just gone through being a child soldier can go into programs for long-term rehabilitation care.